We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. To keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Here we go, Toward Anarchy. Thank you for listening in. I am Michael Storm, and it is Saturday night. It's prime time. We're here worldwide on the Republic Broadcasting Network. You can find me on Facebook and X and Instagram and just about everywhere else at Toward Anarchy. And wherever you find me, please just take a quick moment. Do it right now, 1 quick second, to click that like button. Let me know that you're out there, and you can always follow along at towardanarchy.com. And if you're so inclined to do so, you can sign up for the email list at towardanarchy.com. It's one of those things that's fairly easy to get to. It's on most of the pages, and it's real simple. You just drop your email address in there and click subscribe. And if you ever want to unsubscribe to it, all that's in the email. It's all on the up and up. I don't bother you too often. I think I may have sent 3 emails last year. But to that, that said, to its testament, to your testament, the people who do listen, it is one of the better metrics I have for judging the number of people who want to regularly have some contact or connection to the show, and to know that if other things go away, other methods of finding the show were to go away, that there's still that connection, that they're always going to have that way to be updated on the show, to find out the latest, to find out some links. In the event I actually send out one of those emails, but it's fantastic watching everybody sign up for it every week. I get a new email that fills me in and lets me know how many people have signed up on the list, and it doesn't matter how many it is, if it's 1 or 15. It just blows my mind to see, and it's awesome. It's great because it really is the best way for us to make sure that no matter what happens, we kind of stay in contact. And of course, as always, towardanarchy.com. If you ever lose track of me, that's my spot. That's it. They're going to have to pry that one from my cold dead hands, which is probably a little easier than I might like to want to believe that it would be. But until they do take it away from me, and they do take my voice away, it's post. It's the 13th now. It's early on the 13th right now when I'm saying that, so we'll get to that, and we'll talk about that whole situation. It's been a crazy week, a crazy last few days for sure. Before we get into it, I want to make sure to remind you to support Republic Broadcasting, republicbroadcasting.org. You click on that donate button over there on the left-hand side. It's really a very easy thing to do because it's its lone little button. It's just sort of sitting right over there on the left-hand side. It says donate, and it's real simple. You click it, a couple more clicks, you make a one-time donation, you make a regular donation, whatever amount you make that call, and thank you for doing it, because it's amazing. You have kept Republic Broadcasting on the air for many years, longer than I've been here, and I've been running around the place for whatever we're 2025, so about 14 years now, off and on for about 14 years. So the place has been around at least that long. You guys have made it possible for people like me, and the love that I get across the network is really truly amazing. It's I wouldn't say that it's well deserved per se, like I deserve. I just because by the very nature of my presence, I deserve to be treated treated in a certain manner. No, it's earned is what it is. I think I've spent the years here. I've had the conversation, the regulars, the people who've been listening for years, the supporters like yourself who have been supporting the network, have heard what I have to say, and you know that even if we don't agree on every single point, we agree on the important points of individualism and the important points of loving relationships, caring relationships. Probably, I don't want to get in trouble for saying anything off the, out of the ordinary here that's not acceptable these days, but probably, heteronormative relationships that produce children, healthy, I get it that there are plenty of heteronormative relationships that are not, shining examples for how to raise people. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I'm certainly suggesting that the numbers, my own experience, and it is, bigger than myself, in understanding these things suggests that a loving home of a male and female counterparts that have those counters and those parts that those things that counter and their compatible parts all at the same time, providing a loving, safe environment to raise children in. I'm not saying that there aren't other considerations for family groups that can do that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to be as nice as I possibly can here because I don't want some piece of crap coward to shoot me in the neck for saying the wrong thing. Can we just be as blunt about that as we can possibly be? Because I'm going to spend quite a bit of the show today talking about somebody I have no idea who they are. Not really in any sense, but I have a lot in common with them, and somebody murdered them this week in cold blood, and we've had this conversation before, and apparently we have to have it again, and if we have to continue to have it, it's going to be very sad. It would be nice if people would get it, but I don't think people will. As I was saying, support the network. I'm going to come back to all of this. I'm coming back to this, and I don't mean to drift, but it obviously it all ties together when I'm talking about free speech and I'm talking about the platform that we have and the fact that you guys have provided me this platform and that you have not to my knowledge, nobody has ever complained about me on the network, not in any real sense in the years that I've been doing this, in the hundreds of hours of radio that I have provided both live and recorded across the network. To my knowledge, nobody has made any serious complaint or suggested that I didn't belong here. And that's because, again, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the important values of the power of the individual and the strength of family and the unity of voluntary unity are extremely important to me, and when we work together to achieve those things, we can achieve just about anything we want. And so that, to me, is where we connect and where it's shown across the network that people appreciate that while I have a different opinion than quite a few people across the network, both listeners and all inclusive, listeners, hosts, and the people who run the network. I don't share specific values or ideals with any of the groups at all. I have problems with probably any given one of these groups that aren't just, these peoples that aren't just sort of anarchists already, because there's always going to be something in at least statism, if nothing else, for me to point at and say that until we cross this particular line, we don't see eye to eye. But you guys you let me come here and you let me have the conversation, and I'm welcomed and I'm appreciated, and it shows, and there's so much to say about just that and about how important Republic Broadcasting Network is, not just to myself, but all the other voices and to all the people who listen to it. Click that donate button at republicbroadcasting.org, or give us a buzz if you're not into the tech thing, 800-724-2719, extension 3, and you can talk to somebody. If you already know the answer to the question, just write the check or the money order and send it to RBN 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. And I can do this now. I don't know how much longer, and I apologize if you jump in and you're too late already. I'm not exactly sure how everybody will know how many we have, but I have these special constitutions. They're trade paperbacks. If you know the show, you know I own a comic book shop, and I'm into comic books, and I think comic books are important. I think they're an important part of literature. I think they're important for so many reasons that we've been over and over again, and I may get into some later in the show. But at the moment, just suffice it to say, I own a comic book shop, and one of the distributors that we have had available these trade paperbacks, and a trade paperback in my trade, in the comic book trade, is basically a collected work of a comic book series, 1 to 6 issues or something like that, usually, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, whatever, like that, and then 4, 5, 6 issues in each one of the volumes, encompassing a story line or a story arc or a larger portion of a story arc before moving on to the next one, whatever. And at any rate, it's a trade thing, and I like to talk about it, and people don't necessarily know there are words and phrases and things that are used specifically within certain industries. And people understand the words, but they may not get the same picture. And so it's always fun to talk about words like trade paperback and what they are and what they mean in the industry and how different they are from a comic book, but yet they're the same. So I have this comic book about the Constitution. It's about the framing of the Constitution and about ideas and things that surround it and things that have happened throughout history that have had impact or have been impacted by the Constitution. And it has the Bill of Rights, and it goes through all the articles, and it's just a fun, really neat, sequential description, a comic book of the Constitution and those early founding documents of the United States here, and obviously they're more valuable. That those documents are more valuable to some people than they are to others. They're not particularly valuable to me, but the comic books are valuable to me. And you've heard me say before that I don't believe that there's this. I don't believe you throw the baby out with the bathwater. In particular, speaking of at least the Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights is clearly this separate document, a particular document, a different instrument than the Constitution being the rules for the operation of the federal system over the states and within the states and through the branches in the judicial system. So the Bill of Rights is this second document that is clearly directed to a different perspective, written for a different reason, talks about things in a completely different way. It doesn't present a framework from which the system operates in. It presents a framework from which the system cannot operate at all, and is a very special document in and of itself, and it tries to recognize the individual's right under the state in any form, certainly in our form of our republic and the democracy and everything that follows through with it. The Bill of Rights represents the attempt by normal people, even elite special people. Of course they would be if they're the ones that are framing these things. Everybody else is trying to put food on their dinner, trying to stay alive and not die before the age of 35. So these guys, these elite, are framing these ideas, and some of them work better than others, and some of them are better instituted and executed than others. But the ultimate idea is that the Bill of Rights sets up this framework from which individuals have the right to be free, the natural right that we are people and that we choose to associate with who we choose to associate with, and that unless and until we violate other people, generally speaking, you must leave us alone, and it recognizes that we have the right to speak out. And of course, that's within the framework of a system. Of course, we all naturally have the right to speak out and to use our voice in any way that we can, but to attempt to suggest that it might be a nice idea that we recognize that there are others around us, and that if we recognize their right to speak and be who they are, that they will in turn recognize ours, and it's a two-way street. And if you suggest that these things are natural and that they can't be taken away from you, they can't be separated from you, they can't be alienated, separated, none of them can be taken from you, even to the point that should you deny their existence, they don't actually go away. You can say, well, I give up this right, but you don't actually give up that right because it's not something you can give up. It is innate to us. It exists. We have the right to speak, of course we do, but within the framework of a polite society, and to understand that there could, at some point, at some point along the various ranges of speech, be this point where what you're saying or how you're saying it isn't conducive to providing a safe environment for people, and that it's recognized, that we recognize that, and that this is okay, that this is a thing that happens, that this is a thing that people do, and that nobody is going to necessarily take offense to that when it's just speech, when it's just somebody talking about something and it's not action. And I have a history of talking about this. I have a history of backing these ideas that you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, and the baby is the recognition through whatever organization, through whatever political or social organization that we have as a greater whole, that we are individuals and that the state does not have a space within its existence to take us away from our own existence. It doesn't have that power. It doesn't have that ability, no matter what the other frameworks are, what the other conditions are within that system, whatever the other rules are, whatever the things that were set before it. These amendments come along and suggest that they are of a natural state, and that there's no purview in there, no place in there where the state has power to take those things away from us, and recognizing those is a good idea, no matter what the organization of the state is, no matter what we do proceeding forward. There is little flaw within them. We've discussed it before. I've gone through those amendments, and we've talked about where they have some flaw, but that most of those flaws exist within the failure of the system to recognize that those things are otherwise perfect in their limited scope. The idea that we have the right to speak, it shouldn't have to be so specific as to say that we always have the right to speak out, particularly when we're invited to in any space, and that we shouldn't have to be worried about being shot in the neck because because, again, we all understand that it's language, that it's separate from action, and including political action, and I guess more importantly political action if you're talking about the framework of the state and you're talking about the saving any of these ideas or placing any value in these existing ideas and trying to move forward. Because if we have to throw everything out, then it means that everything is fair game. And so I'm not saying that you necessarily, the people that aren't ready for it, need to take all of your sacred documents and your sacred values and things and throw them out, because that's not the case. The case of those documents is such that they were an attempt by flawed people to deal with a flawed and overwhelming system of ideas and ideologies that, unless kept in check by ideas that suggest that you can't, the state isn't more important than the people, then unless and until we lose that, I don't give a hoot about a lot of what these sort of past state people, statists, men of the state have said or done in the past. But there was always that. I believe it's Jefferson who's coming out of the courthouse there. And he's asked, I don't know if this is anecdotal, I don't know that it's real, but I know that the sentiment is important, that the idea behind it is much more important. That's the same with these documents and what's said, and it's that you have a republic if you can keep it. And the republic, and having the republic was important, right? Because the democracy is not what keeps somebody, not what keeps the values of a country. It is just a means through which to alter the system of people who are in charge, theoretically. That's it. It doesn't set any values for the system. Do there need to be any more examples of this than just looking at something like, do you remember way back before Operation Desert Storm and the death of 5 million people or something like that in Iraq, before that whole war and the death of Saddam Hussein? There was an election there, and 99% of the population showed up and voted for, well, the one guy that was on the ballot. I mean, there might have been other people on the ballot, but they probably weren't real. They probably, nobody was taking them seriously. I don't remember the details of it. I just remember that they held an election. It was one of these things that they were doing to to try to stave off what was obviously coming, and it was a joke. It was a joke, and democracy itself is a joke, and we'll get into some more of that today. I know I'm going to shatter a lot of dreams today, especially for conspiracy theorists and some of the people on the right. But that's why you guys love me, because I'm honest. I tell it like it is, right? And remember, I come packing. And I don't go places where I can't pack. So you won't find me on any college campuses disarmed, not able to defend myself, not surrounded by others who would defend me if I needed defense and wasn't able to myself. Nobody's getting on a building at my event without my sniper putting a shell an empty shell on the ground and a bullet in the ass of the person that's across on the building. I don't care who it is. Otherwise, you're just not going to find me in public. You're going to have to assassinate me. You're going to have to do what you would have to do to somebody like a Charlie Kirk, given in any position, any situation where he was able to, as he believed, defend himself naturally. If you face me, there's a chance that you won't like the outcome of the challenge. And that's not a threat. It's a statement of fact, and it goes along with my entire view of the world, of this event, these things that have happened. And I will continue to explain all that. I just want to take care of a little bit more business because I don't have a lot structured for today. By the time you listen, there'll be links. Everything will be in place for you to go and click at towardanarchy.com. It's episode 2530, and you'll be able to see anything that I talk about. I'll collect those specific links and we'll get to them. But I have tons of links because things have been spotty here lately. It happens to me about this time every year. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I have. And it really does. It happens to me this time every year. I get in a situation where I'm tired of chasing guests, where I'm tired of doing some of the mechanics, because in particular, the chasing of the guests, and it's not fun. It's not fun trying to schedule other people to fit into your world, and I certainly don't want to try to schedule myself to fit into other people's worlds any more than I have to. And so it's a game that I play all year long, and because of the fact that I only do the one show every week, I don't have that many opportunities in a year to interview people, and I have more people that want to be on than I have the need for to be on. And so it's always a question of who am I having? Are they going to be there? Are they going to show up? Is it going to be the good conversation that I think it's going to be? I've never heard of this person. I'm trying to expand my own reach and knowledge and understanding, let alone that of the listeners. And so, is this going to work? Could I just call up the one-armed madman and talk to him? Because I know at least, for Christ's sake, I'm going to have somebody sane to talk to at least for a few minutes on most subjects. We'll talk to the one-armed madman next week. He and I actually are cooking up something. We're going to tie the two shows together. I don't know exactly how it'll play out, but it'll be a two-parter. One part will be on my show, and the other part will be on the one-armed madman's show. And I will give you all those details, and you'll have all those links, and all that'll come together next week. But I use the one-armed madman as a perfect example because I was already. It's funny, there was something in the air or whatever for the last week or so, maybe even a little bit more than that. I've been chomping at the bit. I need to call. I need to send him a text from my phone. I need to hit him up. However, I need to hit up the one-armed madman. I got to talk to Nick Meyer because I just need to have a conversation, an easy conversation with somebody. I don't need the challenge anymore. I don't need to have to fight to try to get them to show up at a certain time. I don't have to worry about whether or not they missed the connection or didn't understand or didn't check in at the booking place on time because they're not. I don't know. They don't do that many interviews. I don't know, whatever it is. The crazy thing is it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter whether or not they have a thing that they want to talk about, something that they want to push, a book or a website or whatever it is, an ideology. It doesn't matter. It's still some sort of more wrangling than needs to be. My God, man, other than something happens that the occasional technology glitch or something like that. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and it's only happened to me on a handful of occasions, but it happens to me all the time. And more often than it should, which I guess makes sense because if you take a couple of episodes for a couple of episodes of something happening and to every person, and then you take that and it happens to every one of the people in the chain, there's that many more times that it's going to happen to the individual that's constantly wrapped up in that, and that's me, the host. That's why I love going on somebody else's show. I love it when other people invite me to their shows, and I have a couple of invites that I need to match up here to go on other people's shows. And because I don't have to worry about anything, I don't have to control anything, I don't have to worry about the production. All I have to do is make sure that I show up on time and that my equipment works. And, barring the couple of times that's literally happened to me in decades of doing this, that I've been the problem. That's what I'm saying. whereas in the other direction, it's happened to me more often. And I never hold it against anybody. I always want to deal with them again and always try to provide them the great. I don't even care. I don't even care if I know that they're lying, that it's obvious that they did what they did because they forgot or whatever it is. They're just trying to make an excuse for why they didn't show up when they said they were going to show up and be where they said they were going to be. I don't particularly care. I still just want to talk to the person. It's fine. But it gets to you, it adds up after a little bit, and you get to the point where you're like, I could have talked to somebody else, I could have had a better conversation, I could have not dealt with any hassle at all, and it just hits me about this time every year, and so I go through a few weeks where I'm just kind of whatever, and then I get back on it, I wrap the year up strong, I go into the next year strong. It's a pattern. I noticed it in myself. ShopRBN.com, just one more little note on supporting the network there. You can always go to ShopRBN.com for the win-win. You support the advertisers. They continue to advertise on the network. I continue to blow your mind or keep your health in mind. That's a really fantastic thing that if you've been following along, I am host of Your Health in Mind. It is a live show on Republic Broadcasting Network that airs going forward from now on, every Wednesday at noon, from noon to 2 Central Standard Time, right here in America, heart of America. And I'm the host. Dr. Dean Lloyd is the professional, the doctor, the guy that actually answers all the questions. I'm the guy that gets to sit there and make funny quips and note, and manage the callers and bring them on the air and things like that. I'm the host. I am the host of this fantastic live show that we've been doing on Thursdays only for an hour, but it was a test run just to see how well it would go, and it's been amazingly received. Well received. We've had calls from all over the world and all over America. People calling in to ask questions to try to stump Dr. Lloyd. No, really, truly an amazing resource of information and caring and love and respect for your health concerns and your health needs and for you as an individual. And so a pleasure for me to be involved in it and for it to be growing. And we think it's great for the network. The network is loving it and supporting it. And other announcers and people at the network have worked so hard. Mike and Julie and everybody, they've all worked so hard to make it happen and to make this possible for Dr. Lloyd and I to have 2 hours every week to address you directly. I've been off the live thing for a while, and I never really did a lot of live call-in stuff because it's unpredictable and I run a no boundaries kind of thing. But it's my no boundaries. It's not everybody else's no boundaries. And if you've heard some of my calls, I'm not afraid to tell callers to get banned. I don't have the time or the patience for it. You want to call up and talk about stupid, useless ideologies and try to push them off on me. I don't have time for that. I need to talk about the things that are real, not the things that you imagine or that you imagine should be real or imagine that other people should have value in and that should be valuable for other people. I don't have time for that. I can't do that. That's not what I'm here for. Because I'm here for me. I'm here to do this for me. This is all my therapy. I'm sorry if you've been invited to the conversation thinking that it was about you because you have the choice to listen. That part's about you. This part here where the guy is talking, that part's about me, and it has to be about me because the reasons that I'm doing it are for my own benefit. I don't know that there will ever be a benefit. My mentor, Kenton Riggs, he went to his grave wondering if he'd ever changed anybody's mind about anything, because, short of people coming up to you at some point in your life and going, hey, you changed me. He didn't change my mind. When he found me, I was already a person. As a young man, when we encountered each other in church and began to know each other, and I get to know his children and grow up in and around his family and spend time in his home with my grandmother and I was already fairly. That's the reason that he found me, that he was attracted to me, because I was a 10, 11-year-old boy who spoke like an 18 or 22-year-old boy, or older, an old soul, as people referred to. I had an understanding, a wisdom about me that suggested that I was older than I was. And no, the man never abused me. He never took advantage of me. That's not a part of the story. There's nothing in there like that. It's nothing weird like that at all. It's just an older mentor, a gentleman, somebody, a man of God, somebody who would never hurt a child, somebody that had nothing but love for his fellow man, and he just saw something in me that he saw in himself and that he saw in other smart people, a natural, innate understanding and accepting of people and good ideas and things that work, and I exist within that sphere, and that's the reason that he found me, and that's the reason when you end up here, and that's the reason there's Toward Anarchy, and there's all these great connections in there. And before I trail off on too much more and get too lost into this, we have plenty of time. There's no question about that. But I do really want to just hit on so many things, because it's a very large topic. It's obvious, if you've been paying any attention at all since I turned on the microphone today, that I have a problem with what happened to Charlie Kirk this last week here, just a couple of days ago. It's still fresh. It's still raw. The whole thing is there, and it's extremely fresh, and it's extremely raw for me. I've been very upset about it. I've been very vocal about it. I've been very clear about it, not just in this case, but in all cases. If you've listened to me over the years, then you absolutely know this to be true. Anybody who's listened to me, anybody who's had a lengthy conversation with me at any time since I was probably 10 years old would know this about me, that I don't like bullies, I don't like cowards, I don't like people who use whatever it is that they have at their disposal to force other people to accept them or to accept their ideology or whatever it may be that they want to force somebody to do. That's bullying. I don't like it. I'm not a fan at all. I'm a bad fan of the bully. I'm no friend, no fan to the bully. That's why I talk about our bully politics like we do. And that's why I talk about situations like the Charlie Kirk thing very specifically in terms of the action and not in terms of identity politics or demonizing the individuals involved, the victims or the actors that have enacted such an evil thing on somebody, because it is about the act. And so I try to avoid any preconceived notion about who any of these people are, and so I can remain as best I can the objective viewer and journaler of the things that I am for my own sanity. Again, for me to complete the thought, done for me, for my sanity, to be able to talk about these things, to be able to get them out of my head, to step beyond them. There's something that's happening as we have this disconnected world, short attention span, world that so much of the short attention span is taken up by groupthink and about group experience, because that's what's pushed to us by algorithms, by the media, by the government, by narrative. These things are pushed to us, and so we get caught up in them, and we never exercise them. You've heard me talk about one of the clearly obvious, I'm not a psychologist, although I've taken psychology in college, it's a trope in TV and movies. They say, I've taken psychology and now I can I've taken Psych 101, and now I can absolutely identify everybody. The psychology of it all, what I understand of people, what I've come to expect of people, and in any of these given situations where we're having these heated, powerful discussions about ideologies and about things that exist within the political or social spectrum that appear to be more malleable than they are or should be, and it's hard to direct all of this all at one time and to get all of this straight. And so I'm glad that we have a lot of time to be able to work it all out, because I've not had a chance to work it all out. That's what I'm getting at about doing it, is you get through it. You have the cathartic moment. That's the thing about the musicians. I've talked about it over and over again over the years. It's an obvious psychological thing that it happens, particularly with musicians. People in Hollywood are another one. They're on a little bit different level, and there's a few other things that are going on there. So it's similar, but it's different. It's different with the musicians because the musicians have this thing where oftentimes, especially beginning early on, and what ends up being the most powerful and most important to most people, including their listeners themselves, the musicians themselves, and the listeners themselves, their best work, those things. Some have a longevity that their best work is always still the next thing to come, and they never really get caught up in that, and they're able to move along, and they're able to have their cathartic moment. They're able to live through what it is that is the pain, oftentimes, a lot of times, that creates music or that creates creativity in general or directs creativity, because it becomes a refuge. And so these people that write music in particular early on, and that it's important to them, I'm not talking about this studio stuff, I'm not talking about where somebody walks in, Madonna walks in and they got 15 songs or 15 riffs and some hooks, and they say, which ones do you want, and they pull that together, and 15 different people create a song. I'm talking about the songs that individuals write or that groups write together, and they go through and so many times a cathartic pain, loss, suffering. Listen to the music. There shouldn't be a lot of me having to really explain this. So much music is about heartbreak, and in a lot of cases it's overcome, but then in many more cases it's not overcome. And it's not overcome in a lot of cases, unfortunately, because that's something that lingers with these musicians and these artists, and so it creates a psychological rift in their brain, and they're up there on stage every night performing these songs that are these painful memories and these things that they had to, that when they were originally writing them, they're exercising their demons. They're literally sort of putting these things on paper, and usually you take those things, you put them on the paper, you throw those things in the fire, you're saying goodbye to them, and that's the end of them. You let them go off in a puff of smoke, but these people suck them back in. They suck that evil smoke, that nastiness back in their lungs every single night as they sing it over and over again, and they end up getting caught in this morass of never being able to let it go. So I have to come here and I have to let it go. You have to let it go. We all have to let it go. If you could all do this, we could all do this, we can all find some place in the space where we don't just get away from it, because that's not going to work. Watch the people on the social media. I'm leaving social media, I'm canceling my account. And, 6 weeks, whatever it is, 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 years, whatever it is, they come back and they're back and they say, oh yeah, well I enjoyed it while I was gone, but I'm back here, blah, blah, blah. And it's because it's never let go. You can't just run away from it. It doesn't go away. It's still happening all out there. All of these things are still happening, and no matter how much you separate yourself from them, unless you completely disconnect, and that's not possible for me, it's not realistic. It shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to do it. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Nobody should have to. You should be able to enjoy it. We should be able to enjoy the fruits of our technology and our society and the things that have created what we do. But a lot of people don't, and they get caught in this, okay, I can just escape and I'll go away and I'll just turn it off for a while. But it doesn't. It's not like it went away. If you come back, when you're going to fail right there when you say, I'll turn it off for a while, I'll come back and I'll be back on it. And so that right there is going to fail because you're already setting yourself up to come back. You're going to be back. You're going to be talking about this again. You're going to be in this environment again where these things are going on. You're not shedding it. And so instead of running away from it, you embrace it. You dive into it. You don't have to dive in to the point where the water's over your head. In fact, I would probably suggest that you don't do that. And this is anything. I'm not just talking about social media. I'm talking about life in general. When you go in, leave a little bit of room for you to catch a breath, maybe, and don't paint yourself into a corner. That's a radio thing. Don't paint yourself into a corner. Don't talk yourself into something you can't talk yourself out of and stand there and go, what do I say next? Trust me, it's a science. It's an art. It's something that you have to learn, that you have to teach yourself to not do. And it's something that the conversation is going on while the conversation is going on. And you have multiple conversations going on within yourself and outside of yourself, making sure that you stay on this little path. This is all exercise. This is all exercise in brain power. This is all exercising the demons. It's literally exercising this nastiness, this hatred, these things that are filling up our world and our vision so often, especially as our vision becomes smaller. If you can't tell, that's what I've been getting at, is this sort of shrinking size of all these things, all these ideologies and things being come together and pushed at us through very limited windows and spaces. We're all going to have to reconcile it with ourselves and with our world eventually, or it's going to swallow us. And there's a couple of ways that can go, and not very many of them necessarily are the best way, are the way that you maybe necessarily want to end up taking yourself. Nobody wants to be alone, and disconnecting yourself, cutting yourself off, it doesn't work. We saw it at Ruby Ridge, what happens. It's something of a meme, but it's truth, and it's something that it sucks. It's an opportunity that got missed by me. I didn't know. My father knew Randy Weaver before he died, and had known him for years, and I could tell you it never came up, and I have no idea why it never did. Otherwise, I would have hopefully been able to have talked to Randy Weaver, and we could, But anyway, Randy took his family out of society. He's like, you know what? These people are crazy, and they're going to kill us, and we just want to get away. And so what happened? They followed him into the hills and killed them, and killed his family, and really just. You know the story of Ruby Ridge. If you don't know the story of Ruby Ridge, go and look it up. This is what happens. There's no escape. And there's also no taking it head on. Certainly not by yourself. You're a fool. Look at what's happened. Just this fool this last week, this coward, this craven piece of crap. I know his name. We all know his name now. It's not important to me. This murderous scumbag, it doesn't matter who he is. It doesn't matter what his name is. It doesn't matter what his ideology is. It doesn't matter what his political leanings are. He is a coward. He is a scumbag. He is a murderer. He is a scum. He's just scum. He's just was the point I was getting at. Take him and his actions and what they've done and what he did. He changed nothing, and not in any real terms. If anything, his actions. Let's just take them at face value. We're going to get into the conspiracies. We're going to talk about a couple of those things here. We'll talk about all of it, as much of it as I can, as we go along. But just taking it at face value, he did what he did. As you say, he is who he is, and he did what he did. He killed this man. Maybe he believed that this man was the next Hitler, regardless of any other political ideology or whatever. He obviously hated Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's ideology, and so he killed him, and it won't change a single thing. In doing so, he absolutely proved one of Charlie's biggest conversation points, one of the things that he went around talking about most, from what I understand, given my limited knowledge of the man. But I'm going to continue to explain all of this and the amount of knowledge that I have about him and how that comes about and what it means in terms of my understanding. And I think that maybe you want to hear this, especially across the network, because it should be reassuring for you across the network to understand where I am at in relation, how this anarchist reacts to the murder of Charlie Kirk, and it's also I think important that everyone that you understand why, because it's not about those ideologies. That's what we'll get to at some point. That it's not about those ideologies. I've already said it, that this is not about just sort of left or right. That this is just the actions of one bad person, one bad actor, for whatever his reasons may be. And that it doesn't matter if there's a sort of left or right or whatever political drive behind this. It doesn't matter, because it's the actions of a person. It's the actions of an individual. That's what matters. Their motives, their excuses, those aren't what matter. They really aren't. Those are things for justice systems and lawyers to figure out when the state steps in and claims that it is what will be able to, and it is what provides justice. In fact, that was one of the funny things, Jesus Christ, about any of this stuff that has happened in the last couple of days since Charlie was murdered. Is this? There was, I think it was the Bee that put out a post right after, not long after the alleged murderer turned himself in through his confession, and then the priest suggesting, I guess this is how it played out, he had confessed to somebody, and possibly his father, and they had told the priest, and the priest told him, and you have to do it, you have to confess, you need to turn yourself in, whatever. At any rate, he ultimately has turned himself in, and somebody somewhere, probably the president, maybe Kash Patel, somebody like that, commented about the FBI and about what their importance in things was. And let's see if I can spot it here. I'm pretty sure I shared it across just my own social media, so it'll just pop up here if I scroll down here. Yeah, here it is. So, okay, so the old FBI. We can always count on them. We can get into the details about how the FBI is behind almost every terrorist attack that's happened on American soil in one way or another, whether it's just individuals shooting up people, or whether it's pipe bombs, or whether it's that they're in there somewhere, that they had something to do with it, somebody knew something, they didn't do anything, or they did do something and they set things in motion and kind of set people up, like to blow up the Sears Tower or something like that. The FBI, you can always count on them. They're there. I guess the quote was, we couldn't have done this without the relentless efforts of the FBI. And of course, the Bee rephrased that ladies and gentlemen, we got him, announces FBI after killer turns himself in. So yeah, there's your state, there's your justice for you. And while we're on the subject of any subject at all, in any conversation that we're having, and anything that you might have to say about something, you can stop. We have that benefit now. We've always had that benefit. I don't have it as much right here behind the microphone because I treat this like a live event. I don't do edits. I don't go back. I don't fix mistakes. If I screw up, if I say something stupid or wrong, I move forward. That's my training as a professional announcer. Basically, generally speaking, if there's an error, no matter what, whether I recognize, if I recognize that there is an error and it is an error that does not matter, that's not going to change the conversation, I keep talking. That's what I do. But I want to suggest to you that in any other circumstance, you have the choice, that you have the ability to not say some things, and that can, I know I get it, and it's seemingly very ironic given the context under which somebody is telling you this, but it's really okay to keep some of those stupid thoughts to yourself. It really truly is. We're closing in on the top of the hour here. We got just a couple of minutes, and I might, depending on what else I say here, just as we're going out, I might throw in one of my little bits, one of my little recordings. It might be somebody talking about economics. It might be something from a television show. Just something I find provocative or interesting or funny. Attach a little something on there for you as we transition into the second hour. And in the second hour, I will get into the rest of this, and I have a comic book to tell you about, and that, how that ties in. Oh my, what a reality that we live in, and what a reality I live in, that these things like this constantly happen to me, and that I'm able to go with the flow and accept it for what it is, and take it and move forward with it and bring it to you in the best light possible. And you'll understand that when I tell you about the comic book and I tell you what happened, because you probably don't know. There are a lot of people who do, but this is probably one of those topics that you don't, unless you're one of the comic book people who listens to me, which there's like 2 probably, you probably don't know what's going on in the comic book realm, and oh boy, it's always interesting all the time. There's always something, because it mirrors, the comic book realm, the video game realm, Hollywood fantasy, all of it mirrors reality. The things that you see that are happening politically, socially, around you, across the news and in your neighborhoods and through your schools, these things are being addressed everywhere, and they're happening everywhere, inside every little enclave of reality. These things have seeped their way in. It's in the comic books, it's in the video games, it's in the movies, it's in pop culture. All of these things that we've talked about, all of these creeping ideologies and dangerous not just thoughts, but dangerous, suggestive things to people that cause them to come to action on these political or social divisions that have been driven between us. These things that they've really, these wedges that they have driven between us. And let's do that. Let's jump out here real quick, and we will be right back here for hour number 2 on Toward Anarchy. Stick around.
When you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy.
That's right.
The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history or where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crying in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
And here we go off into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along. It's episode 2530, and when you get there, it should be easy. Just click the episodes button if it's not right there on the front page. By the time you get there, it's in episodes under 2025, and it would be, well, you guessed it, the 30th episode of the year 2025. Yeah, it's not a complicated code. It really isn't. In fact, it's so uncomplicated that I only recently decided to do it that way because it was such an easier, undated way of just laying the stuff out there, but still kind of dated. You kind of tell by the week. You know, there's 52 weeks in a year. I have 30 episodes in where I don't know, 34, 35 episodes, 35 weeks into the year, something like that. And so you can see about how many episodes I'll get in a year. Towardanarchy.com. Follow along. By the time you get there, there'll be some interesting things there. I couldn't click on them now because I didn't know exactly what it was because there's been so much going on, and I've been, slightly absent from the whole thing a little bit myself, and unfortunately, that's just a thing. I do get a little bit separated from it all, and getting back into it, getting back into the rhythm of it all can take a moment or two. And so, bear with me at times when things like that happen. It's just been that time of year. You get in, I apparently do, get into my groove, and then I get out of it at this point in the year, and it takes me a little bit to jump back into it. And it's not a big deal. Everybody does that. It's in the recognizing that you're not doing what you want to do, that you're not doing what you should do, that you should be getting done. The recognition of that, and then getting back on track and getting back, it's not falling off the wagon. That's the problem. It's when you don't get back on the wagon. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not, but it's about as close as we're going to get. There's just so much that's going on that I have all of these links that I've collected, and so I didn't know exactly which ones I was going to end up talking about because there literally are a bunch of things that I haven't shared with you that we haven't talked about in weeks because it just never. There's so much going on, and there's just never. There's no way for me to talk about it all. There just isn't. It wouldn't matter if I were full on paying attention to every single little detail and laying it out there as perfectly and as cleanly as I can. It would still not all get out there. There's just almost no way. It really, truly. Let me give you a couple of quotes here. They keep saying post-capitalism because their future for you is total socialism, slavery, under the guise of fixing what capitalism has broken. Only capitalism didn't cause these economic conditions, the disparity, the despair. Capitalism didn't fail you. The political system failed you. Democracy failed you because the very nature of government is socialist redistribution of wealth. Who do you think said that? It was me. I said it. I know. Quoting yourself is just, that's uncouth, right? That's not cool. You don't quote yourself. But it's a good quote, and it's right. It's true. Here's one from somebody else, and you may not appreciate it any bit, even a bit more. To say that an unconstitutional law must be obeyed until it is repealed is saying that an unconstitutional law is just as obligatory as a constitutional one. Lysander Spooner said that, and he's an anarchist. That's all I know about him. Literally all I know about him. I've read a few things here and there. I catch a quote here and there that's something like that, and it rings true with me, and I share it with you. That's the best I got. I read one of his documents to you one time, the Constitution of No Authority. That's about the extent of my knowledge of the guy. I couldn't even tell you when he existed. I know it was 1800s or something. And I know that he looked like the rest of those anarchists from that time period. He looked like a leftist socialist, and he's economically ignorant. In the little bit that I have read from him, he is another one of these economically ignorant leftist socialist anarchists. Their total idea of anarchy is just trashed by their lack of understanding of economics. I've been over and over this with you guys. I'm an anomaly, and it may not seem like it because there's more of us than there ever have been, I suppose, in the past. But the anarchist, the anarcho-capitalist that I am is kind of a rare thing in the anarchy movement, because the anarchists are generally, they tend to be sort of leftist. It's something of a leftist ideology, but I think that's part of an answer to the system, an attempt to answer the system, an oppressive system, and so it's almost like an opposite of the repressive system, and so it falls along the lines of the leftist ideologies of through all time. We're dealing with them now, as a matter of fact, the same economic ignorance that leads to leftist ideology, or that leads to bringing other people in under a leftist ideology, an anti-capitalist ideology, anti-individual ideology, an anti-self-defense ideology. All of these things are encompassed in a lot of ways within the leftist ideologies in general, and so it's weird for me, as somebody who has no leftist tendencies whatsoever, in terms of the economics of things, and in terms of even social in social aspects, because I tend to identify with conservative values because I do value family, I do value personal relationships, and I believe in the things that I talked about in the first hour, just generally speaking, and I think that the science, the math, the psychology, all of it bears it out, that generally speaking, the nuclear family is the better way for a society to develop. A man, a woman, for the most part, and directly loving and caring and there and present, and the less things that they have to deal with externally, the more things that they can deal within themselves and internally within their family units and care for people. And I'm not trying, once again, I'm not trying to suggest that there's a perfect answer one way or another, but there's no question in my mind, as nice as I try to be about it and as clear as I try to be about it. But again, I don't want somebody to shoot me in the neck. Because I'm just talking, I'm just having a conversation. These are just my thoughts. They affect you in no way whatsoever. And I believe that good, strong family units make for better societies. That's all there is to it. And natural, whatever, sort of normal relationship families, man, woman, because those are biologically natural for raising children. Whatever you say, whatever you can say about homosexuality in the animal kingdom, outside of this particular us animals, seeing it in other animals, what you don't see by any extent whatsoever. If it happens at all, I would be kind of shocked. Not entirely, but I don't believe that there's anything in nature where like same-sex couples are raising families. Same-sex couples can't have families. They can adopt. They could care for someone of their own. And now, of course, us as people with technology, we can sort of mix and match and put things together in a petri dish and spit out, basically somebody's, a gay couple's kids, basically, sort of, and so, but they can't do that in the animal kingdom, and so there's nobody in the animal kingdom. I don't think I have to make any excuses for myself. I don't think I have to apologize for myself in thinking these things, because I was raised in a broken nuclear family, and the only reason I came out of it was because I was determined that the broken nuclear family was what caused me to have problems, and that I would not cause those problems, put my family in that same situation, that if I was going to go forward with a family, that I would make every effort that I could to make it the best family that I could, and that it would not be a broken home of any kind, let alone a broken home with all the other problems and all the other things that can happen with families. To pile on top of that with the added bonus of being in a sort of same-sex relationship or something like that overly complicates things. And look, to each their own. That's the thing about it. My feeling that way about it in my life is just me. And it only affects me because I don't go around pushing it on other people. You have the relationship you have. You raise your kids how you want to raise your kids. I'm going to raise my kids how I want to raise them. And that's not to say that I'm raising them to suggest to them, to overtly and directly push them in a direction of straight or normal, heteronormal relationships. I didn't have to do that. They accepted them. They found them for themselves quite naturally, even living through all of this madness and craziness that's going on in the schools, where everybody's gender swapping this and gender affirmative that, and all these things. Even with all of that happening, my children going through it, coming out the other side of it, all of their own volition, only having with them the example, in front of them, the example of the people around them, including, and most importantly, their mother and their father, their natural mother and father. The people that birthed them and raised them for every bit of their lives, and have a fantastic, wonderful, happy relationship that is based in love for and respect for each other and for our situation, and working together to build a better lives for ourselves within our family unit. And all of these things are what is important and is what has worked and worked for me. And I'm not saying that there's not something else out there that doesn't work for others, but the jury's in on this one. There's all there is to it, and so you take it for what it is. But again, the important part of that is not that I feel that way. It's that my feeling that way doesn't change how you feel. Doesn't have to change how you act in any way. It doesn't have, if you are in some other relationship than a heteronormative relationship to produce children and raise children, for whatever your reasons, it's perfectly fine. I don't care. Again, I didn't even have an agenda to push my own children in a particular direction. I'm certainly not going to go around pushing you or anyone else in certain. I let people live and find the things, and I lead by example. And I don't give in to pressure of the pressures of the system, the pressures of the politics or the social ideas, and try on either side of any issue. I don't push. I lead. I show. I say, this is what makes me happy. This is what has worked for me. It might work for you. That's all of this. That's all this conversation. That's everything that I've done in my life when it comes to presenting my life and who I am out there. I'm not perfect. I've done things in my life that have not worked out great, but I've never really harmed anybody else. I've never really damaged anybody else in any way that I didn't pay them back, or their property. I've never, excuse me, let me get my drink. I hadn't been having any problems. I've been keeping up with it, but I'm kind of, I'm on fire, I guess, a little bit. The whole Charlie Kirk thing is burning underneath me, and so we're going to get back into that. We'll get back into that. Let's do that. I want to, this is tied in, believe it or not. This is what's crazy about it, this whole thing. All this stuff, it's just amazing how it all ties together, but I guess it's my small world, right? I'm directing it, so that helps at least some little bit to keep things going in the direction, I guess, that would be conducive to the things that I do, matching up and working out and pairing up and providing the great the great results that it often does when I do some of the things that I do unintentionally and they work out. So there's a whole bunch of conversation to be had here about this murder, this assassination last week, and this is only part of it, and it goes along with everything that I do with the comic books, and it's just it's interesting and it's important to recognize that this little world of comic books that a lot of people don't understand and don't know about isn't any different than the rest of the world. That it's just another pocket, it's just another place, and there's just some other people in there doing things that you don't necessarily know about, and they're not necessarily weird or dangerous or different. They're just different from what you know, and that doesn't make them wrong or right or anything other than just a simple fact that they are. That's it. There's nothing to it. It's not that. It's not complicated. What's going on in the world is happening everywhere in the world, and that includes in the world of comic books. And so I've had to back off quite a bit here recently because of exactly what I said. And this was going to happen. And wherever you're picking up this, me talking about the comic books, give a quick like. Click that like button and just let me know that you're out there. Let me know that you care, because I'm going to break down this comic book for you as I always do. But I just wanted to say the reason that I hadn't had so many of them here over the last few weeks, all of this together, other things going on. What it really comes down to is something that I said way back at the beginning when I started doing the reviews. That it was really right away. It was obvious that it was going to be an issue. That trying to do all the reviews the way I was doing it was building up comic books that I would never end up reading. I couldn't get to the reviews I wanted to do. Couldn't get back to the comic books that I wanted to finish reading that I did get a review on or whatever, or read and maybe didn't give a review but still wanted to go back to it and finish it. That didn't necessarily happen that often. But generally speaking, I was reading all these comic books, and I'm not I'm enjoying them, but I'm not getting back to them. I'm not getting the full enjoyment out of them. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going through all of this and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do to alleviate that problem, to reduce the number of things that I read. Well, I don't necessarily want to do that, but and to keep reading more and still fresh and new things, and not wait for entire stories to complete, because that doesn't happen sometimes. There's a real good example today in the comic book that I'm telling you about. So this is all very interesting, the way this plays out, and I'm playing it out for you straight. So I am looking at something that doesn't, it's changed. It doesn't exist anymore as it did when I first looked at it and created what's in front of me, which is just a little note card. It's just one of those little, 3x5 index cards. It's lined on one side, doesn't have any lines on the other side, and in this case, doesn't have any writing on the other side. Sometimes it does, depending on how big the book is, or how much I want to say about a particular topic, or how hard it is to note the things that I want to talk about in the story in short form, to be able just to remember that particular point without having to beleaguer it, at least out on a piece of paper and fill up more and more pieces of paper. Trying to realistically just keep a few notes, not trying to say out everything I'm going to say about this one given topic or any portion of the review of the comic books that I've been reading and sharing with you. And so I have this thing, and it was created, and it was there, and it was waiting, and then events happened. The world happened, and things changed in a very short amount of time. And people in the comic book industry, people in and around the comic book industry, may already have a hint of what I'm talking about. If you know that I've been talking the rest of the show here, many of you will only get this little snippet about the comic book, but the rest of the show is 2 hours long, and I'm talking about all sorts of things. And in this case, I'm talking about the murder of Charlie Kirk. And so you may already know where I'm going with this in terms of the comic book, but others of you don't. And this is just one example of things that are going on in the world that are related, that you may or may not know about in this huge, big old story that's happening everywhere, that everybody in the world knows about right now. And it's running through everybody's phones and internet browsers and TVs, and it's nonstop coverage, and it's just right in everybody's face. But you still might not know about this aspect of it at all. You probably know about the fact that many people have sort of lost their jobs in the last 72 hours for being very hate-filled and vulgar and nasty and unnecessarily disgusting toward a very tragic event and toward another fellow human being that they just happen to disagree with on some political points and political and social points. And that's a pretty big deal. And so this was no different. It was a little bit weird what happened here. So this last Wednesday here, just a couple of days ago, there was an event that happened, and it's called Comic Book Wednesday. It's Comic Book Day. It's when comic books are released. And yes, I know that this past Wednesday there was another big event that happened that day. Well, I put the comic books out the night before, and I'd already collected my comic books and taken them home, and had already read this one in particular and some of the others that were in the pile as well. There was an Archie I read. There was a new Star Wars title that I read that I'm chomping at the bit to share with you, and this as well. And then everything changed in the next 24 hours. I was here Tuesday night putting out the books for Wednesday morning, and by the time Wednesday night came back around for me, Wednesday evening to come back to the store — I don't open the store on Wednesdays, Ben does — and I come in and everything has changed from the night before, and because of the events of the day on Wednesday, and you know what happened. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and so I had read this book called Red Hood. Red Hood is a DC character, DC comic title that just launched Wednesday. I just put it out on the shelves on Tuesday night, and we opened up at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, and people were coming in and buying comic books and picking up their pulls, and everything was going on, and nothing. And then all this stuff happened, and everything's happening. And I'm not even entirely certain of that particular timeline right in there. Just as you know, as the store is opening, as these things are happening around the world, this horrible event, all at the same time, all in around the same relative space. I read this book, and it's written by Gretchen Felker Martin, and it's art by Jeff Spokes. And Gretchen Felker Martin is an author, a couple of books, some things out there. It's just a little bit here and there. I don't know if this was the first comic at all. I know that there was some question about this individual and some of their past and some antagonistic I guess anti-Semitic remarks, which obviously across this audience, across the network, that may not be such a big deal for some people. I know that there are people running around this neck of the woods that don't have a problem with that particular language, and I'm not one of them. I don't subscribe to groupthink and sort of hating an entire group of people or a named group of people for the actions of some people is just something that I don't participate in, but other people do, and apparently this person had in the past, and DC was a little bit warned about it and whatever. They saw something in her that they felt like they needed to go ahead and bring her in and let her do whatever it was, something that they saw in her creative works before that they thought, yeah, let's have this person come in and create a story and have the reins of one of our more interesting characters, in fact. The art was by Jeff Spokes, and you know Jeff from some Wildcats, and he's been on Brave and the Bold, and a bunch of DC stuff, and a bunch of other things as well. I know him from the DC stuff, the Brave and the Bold stuff that he's drawn for, the Brave and the Bold series that he's drawn for is the most recent Brave and the Bold series, which was awesome. I think I collected the entire run and enjoyed every bit of it that I read. Not that I read every single one of them, but I enjoyed every single one that I read. So looking forward to this, knowing, as we do sometimes with these things going in, that they may or may not be good based on our impression of or the reality of one of the creators, the names of some of the creators. We all know this. We all follow, all of us collectors, all of us comic book readers, we all follow our favorite creators, and we have, some of us have creators that we don't like and that we always try to avoid. And when I say we, I'm not talking about me. I don't believe in any such thing. I read stories. I want to be entertained. I don't pass judgment. This thing is a little bit weird with me going back and not placing any judgment on this to be able to deliver my impression of the book as it was, as I normally would do, but still to have this conversation and to make this point in the bigger point, in the bigger conversation here. So, all right, so let me get into it for real and tell you about this comic book and tell you about Red Hood. For those of you who don't know Red Hood, Red Hood appeared in Detective Comics a couple weeks ago or something like that. Issue number 168. It was a long time ago, and it's 1951, in fact. The Joker was the original Red Hood, and it was a pre-murder of Bruce and Martha Wayne I'm sorry, John and Martha Wayne, and creating the orphan Bruce, and existed before that, and it was a gang that he ran around with, the Red Hood Gang. There's a bunch of history there. There's things that have come since that have made it much more interesting, made the character much more interesting, made the Joker character himself more interesting because they played with sort of not necessarily being good, but not necessarily being bad either. Different Elseworlds titles, things like that. But Red Hood is a 616. It's a main. Is that right? You can't say that, right? Is a main, because that's Marvel, is a mainstream, he belongs in the main universe for the DC universe. And it's changed a little bit over the years and has developed in a little bit. And I think it was 2011 that the Red Hood character became Jason Todd. And Jason Todd, this was why I wanted to read the book, because Jason Todd is in and of himself a very interesting character because he was killed by the Joker. So to become the Red Hood, that in and of itself is all this weird, twisted together, it makes for great storytelling, right? But he was actually killed by the Joker, and so Jason Todd is dead, and Jason Todd is a replacement. Jason Todd is Robin, the Boy Wonder, but he's the second Robin, the Boy Wonder. The first one, Dick Grayson, had moved on and become the Nightwing character, and Bill Finger had created this Joker, this Red Hood character, and somehow ultimately in the end that thing came full circle where the second Robin, the Jason Todd, a character that was killed by the fans, is that right? I mean, they're the ones that ultimately let him die. But I think that maybe the plan was they were going to kill him no matter what. I may be twisting this story up a little bit. It's been a long time. And I was never a big Robin fan in general, so I didn't necessarily follow any of the Robin storylines. It's just part of some of the mythos that I could know, should know a little bit of. At any rate, he's dead. He's killed by the Joker, and then he's brought back to life in the Lazarus Pit, and he comes back as this sort of perfect human. He's sort of the peak of perfection. He heals faster than everybody else. He learns faster. He's smarter. He is faster. He's stronger. He is the perfect. He's peak perfection, peak human development, and the perfect super ninja. He's a vigilante. And he's kind of that character. He's that obnoxious D&D player character who imagines their character having no flaws and being perfect and being able to, I know kung fu, that sort of thing. And it's like, oh yeah, I've got every power. I have another power and another power. I love that episode of South Park. Oh, I have another power. Balrog is all powerful. Okay, so let's see. In this story, this new Red Hood comic by Gretchen Felker Martin and Jeff Spokes, this one that just came out on Wednesday, there's a number of murder-suicides that are happening against the cops. And I believe, it's not exactly clear, but I believe both the killers and the victims are cops. It's very clear that the victims are cops because you see a victim. It's the first panel of the book. You see a victim, and that victim is a cop. You can see the badge on their jacket, and then the next frame is the killer, and the killer is not dressed as a cop, but the context and the text in and around these events and in these bubbles and in these frames is telling you that it's leading you to believe that the guys that are not in uniform are also cops. So it's cops and former cops, and they're being controlled one way or another. They keep throwing out this thing they keep saying the tower says hello. So what's happening is it's all being sort of shown on social media, and this is a huge trope across comic books right now. It's just comic book after comic book after comic book because it's a reality of our own that we live in. But it's comic book after comic book that are showing these, their murder podcasts or videos of people doing things that you wouldn't do to other, because they're happening somewhat in real life, but they make for very easy storytelling devices, and I think that's what happened in here in the telling of this story. So there's this number of murder suicides of cops and former cops, and so Red Hood is investigating, and he's got a lead, and he has to meet up with Royale, and I don't know if Royale is this existing character. That's part of the problem. It's one of the reasons I was reading it, to kind of fill in some of the gaps in my knowledge of that Bat lore, that Bat history that's in and around the Jason Todd character, because all I know is he's the second Robin, and he was killed by the Joker, and then he was brought back to life, 15 years ago or whatever it is, and turned into the Red Hood, and now he's this, super duper superhero. He's not just a acrobat or whatever anymore that with some special skills. He's just this highly trained super vigilante, and so I don't have all of this context of this world, and I wanted to know more about it, and so I wanted to read this, and it seemed like a good jump on point. Everybody was, aside from maybe some of the concerns about the past of the writer themselves, and again, I didn't even know any of this going in. This is all secondhand. I'm only even able to say any of that secondhand. I did not know this myself because I don't do that myself, going out to find out about these things. I wait for the number one to come out. If it at all sounded interesting in the pitches for it, and I try to read very few of those to not give away any of the story, especially if I am interested in reading it or think I'll be interested in reading it, I just read it. That's it. I just read it. I don't put my expectations on any of this stuff, and that includes the creators of it or their ability to create it properly. I just go in and I try to enjoy it, and I try to read it, and I either do or I don't. The tagline of the book is "Out of Gotham and out of bullets," and so they're not in Gotham. The storyline is not happening in Gotham, and again, I lack this background, so I don't know where this new Albuquerque is. It's in the South somewhere. But it's not in Gotham. I got the impression maybe New Orleans or something like that, and that maybe there's a zone called New Albuquerque. And I didn't go looking super, but there was a hint of that because this Royal character, Royale, he's a clearly French Canadian or something along those lines, French Creole French, something along those lines, using the word cherie and cher, actually not cherie, cher, but in reference to somebody, and so we're, who's this guy? I don't know. I don't have the background, but he's going to meet this person because they have a lead, and apparently they have an inside line because Hood needs to find out info about these cops. He should find out, did they all work in the same precinct? It seems like they did. It sounds like they did. Were they all trained by the same people? It's all this. What is it? What's the connection between them all? And that's what he's looking for. And so he goes to meet this Royal person, and he does, and he meets with him, and he says, all right, yeah, no, normally you couldn't do this. There's no way I couldn't help you, but I can do this. I can help you. And he runs off, and it's a little bit more story, and eventually, Hood has to come back through and get that information, and I just to make sure that I'm not missing. Oh, yeah, Huntress. That's right. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. This is what I mentioned a second ago when I was talking about this sort of weird storytelling devices, not weird storytelling devices, but just storytelling devices in and of themselves, and easy storytelling devices. One thing that I got immediately on this in this storytelling is that it's fine, but it's very rudimentary. It's very predictable. It's exactly what you expect it to be. There's no mystery going in here in terms of how the characters or the players are going to act or react, or even what they're going to say necessarily at this point. It's all very by the book. There's nothing particularly special about it, and this was one of those things that reinforced that notion, is that Huntress shows up randomly out of nowhere. She just appears, and again, unfortunately, I lack a little bit of background, so I don't know if what they're talking about is something that they were setting up for the future that we never get to see now, and I'll get to that. Or if they were talking about something that happened before, and they're hinting about a big fight between Red Hood, Jason Todd, and Batman, and there's a couple of splash scenes in there, sort of quick memories and things, and that's all that Huntress is this mechanism, this device for telling this other part of the story, and doesn't necessarily even play into the current storyline, or may not. But she ends up they do work her in, and she plays more of a part of the story by the time they get to the good parts, get closer to the end of the story, and the suspense builds up, and things start happening, because it is, there's a slow build up. That's kind of suspenseful, fill in the gap, all that thing, and that's what we were working on, and that's what builds a good serialized presentation of stories, I would think, right? But no worries about this one, because this has been canceled already. Red Hood number 1 is also is the first issue, and is also the last issue of this particular volume of Red Hood. I don't know, it's volume 2, maybe only volume 2. There may have only been one before it. Again, sorry. I don't know it all, and I don't pretend to. That's I go to read the things and enjoy them to fill in some of those gaps, and especially when you're talking about history of characters and things like this. 85 years of Batman and almost that many of Robin, as far as that goes. Not nearly as many of those as Jason Todd as Robin, but they're definitely in there. That is the story. Now the rest of the story is that a coward murdered a man from cover at a distance, an unarmed, unsuspecting man that he had disagreed with politically and perhaps socially, and some of the things that he believes or understands. And this Gretchen Felker Martin, the writer of Red Hood, was one of a number of people, leftist individuals, I guess, who could not keep their mouths shut and had to extend their hatred to an otherwise innocent man. And when I say an otherwise innocent man, he hurt nobody. He damaged no one's property. He was no direct threat to an individual, and so therefore no particular individual, certainly not the one that murdered him from a distance, had any claim on his life, any legitimate claim on his life in defense of their own life, anything, nothing that fits the notion of sort of live and let live that I, as an anarchist, live by. And that includes in terms of being armed and in terms of self-defense. I am an atheist and an anarchist. If there is anybody who should despise a Charlie Kirk and the things that he believes and espouses, it is I. I am that person, and I did not know him. I know of him. I had seen some things here and there. about him, and I'd seen him have some conversations with people, and that's what was important to me, was the conversations that he was having with people, because I have conversations. I have a space. I have a platform. I reach thousands of people every week, into the tens of thousands each month, across the social media and across the podcasting and across the network, even more than that, more than that natural social media reach that I have that extends into the five figures. It's nothing impressive compared to many others that are out there, but not to confuse the issue or try to suggest that I am a martyr or that I am anything like Jesus, because I don't want necessarily those comparisons or to have to try to live up to those comparisons. But there is still just a touch of that exists in there, in the willingness to have the conversation and the willingness to live and let live, and let people be who they are, and to not judge other people, and to leave that, the judgment of other people to people who have been wronged, right? Me as an anarchist, that's what I believe, is that everything should be voluntary. Everything that we do, the people that we are, the people that we associate with, whatever it is, it should all be choice. It should all be voluntary. None of it should be coerced or forced. And these are ideas that I talk about all the time on the regular 2-hour show. And while this little particular review of a comic book is extended a little longer than most of them do, I don't want it to be missed within these conversations that I have about these comic books, either, that I have a particular set of values, because I think it's important, and I do believe that it's important, because I think that my values are good, and I think that my values extend beyond the simple false paradigm of left-right politics and division that drives the hatred that causes somebody like a Gretchen Felker Martin to take joy in the murder of a father in front of his children, in front of his family, his very young children, for having a political discourse and bringing other people in to have that political discourse. I, as somebody who says things on the fly, openly, unedited. I run my entire 2-hour show without edits. I treat it as if it was live, even though it is pre-recorded. You don't get any edits. You get the raw me, mistakes and all, and unclear statements about reality and all as well. And I wouldn't want somebody to shoot me in the neck, to murder me for the things that I'm saying. And I get that there's a little bit of a distinction, and this is one of the distinctions that I immediately tried to make when it came to the Charlie Kirk murder, because there is no distinction about the act of the murder. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. It doesn't matter what the claimed ideology of the murderer is. It's the act. It's the murder. The cold-blooded murder of a man who didn't see it coming, wasn't suspecting, didn't deserve it. His family didn't deserve it, hadn't done anything to the person that murdered them. These are all factors that play into my live and let live, the ideology of living and let living, the anarchist ideology, the idea that nobody rules over anybody else, that they can't be forced to see the world or participate in the world as somebody else wants them to do, and that they in turn, that I, the anarchist, in turn affords that to everyone else. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way street with some sirens going down it at the moment. It's a two-way street that we're all walking, that we all have to share together. And the more we respect each other, the more we can live together, the easier we can live together. And the more we are forced to live together, coerced to live together, the less likely it is that we're going to get along together. The more manipulations of the political and social systems that there are, the more people that there are to manipulate those systems, the harder it is for the rest of us to naturally get along. I believe that what you see around you is created in spite of the manipulations of the government, and manipulations of people, some rich people, some capitalists, some people who have more money than sense, and spend their money and their time and their energy in ways that I don't like and that you don't like and that result in bad things, but that you can't blame on capitalism, that you have to blame on individuals, just like there is blame here for murder, and it is of the person who pulled the trigger, regardless of who they are. Let me address a couple of things that there's just a whole number of ideas. I just want to cover a bunch of them. There's in no order. I just jotted some quick notes as these things were happening over the last couple of days, and so I just wanted to hit on them. I'll have some links for you up there at towardanarchy.com to share as the time just burns off, and because there's just so much to talk about. It's just so important right now to have this conversation because we're at a turning point. This is a place, turning point, no pun intended. This is the type of thing that is problematic for America because if I'm angry about it, think about it. If I'm angry about it, if I'm concerned about it, if I'm worried about it as just a broadcaster, as somebody who speaks their truth and believes that he has the right to do so both legally and morally, especially in a place that's my place or a place that I've been invited to have a conversation, and that I should be able to have that conversation without the concern of being killed just because somebody disagrees with me. I didn't attack somebody. I didn't harm somebody. I did not damage their property. I do not, in turn, deserve to be damaged or taxed or attacked or anything when I've done nothing to anyone else just because my opinion is different than theirs, just because I see the world a different way. I don't want that happening to me. I don't want that happening to anyone else. Charlie Kirk, a Christian, a statist, me, an atheist, and an anarchist, not a lot in common, except that we do have a lot in common because we value family, we value people, we value the individuals, we value the idea that we should all have the right of self-defense, we value the notion that strong family units build strong societies, and that there's different ways to achieve those things, but there are certain paths that are better than others and are demonstrably better than others, and there are people that have made claims. They make claims that he's a racist and this and that, and these are all things that even me, knowing hardly anything about him, and I'm able to dismiss. So let's hit a couple of things. A well-placed shot from 200 yards out. This is some conspiracy stuff, right? This is addressing conspiracy. Well-placed shot from 200 yards out, down angle from a rooftop directly in the neck. Precision like that doesn't come from a protester with a grudge. It comes from someone who's drilled this 1,000 times under military glass. This is just random comments, these things that are not my words. These are real comments from real people. They're just random. I did not collect names. I didn't record names in any of the things that I heard or saw, and left it at that just to give my response to them. So consider what they're saying there. 200-yard shot, rooftop down angle. It's actually less than that. It wasn't that far. It's actually not that hard of a shot. It doesn't take that much practice, especially if you have a good rifle, especially if you have a quality around. All of these things are easy to know, easy to learn, can be looked up, can be taught to a person, can be taught to yourself in a very short amount of time, especially when you consider that a pro would have been aiming for the head and wouldn't have missed and hit the neck like this shooter obviously did. Was aiming for the head, hit the neck. The pro would have hit the head. It was possible that this was a Mossad execution, but why would they do it? That was the general question in a lot of different places. I say because it makes for a better story. It's simple answers for simple people. It could be extremely more complicated than that. And of course, the base claim is something along the lines of he was recently vocal about Israeli-led violence in Palestine and manipulations of America's government and all these different things, Zionism, all this stuff, all these other words and things and ideologies and people that I have some knowledge of, but not enough to sit here and try to pretend like I can offer you anything other than I don't like any statist, regardless of what state it is, answer to who they are and what it is that they do and their influence on people and on politics and on the world. Or was it that that's why they lacked him because of that? Except that doesn't seem to be there doesn't seem to be any reason to believe that. I was taken out to whitewash the Doha events, where apparently our government tricked a bunch of people in the Middle East to showing up at a meet and greet and let's resolve this kind of thing. And then apparently the Israelis took them all out, blew them all up. Some video anomalies, things that are created by zooming in and speculation about blood packs and things like that. That's not what I saw. That's not what's there. I see a reaction. I see the impact of a high-powered round ripping through a body, and that creates weird effects. You see the face and things. You see the flesh, loose clothing, things like that warp into shapes that they wouldn't otherwise warp with, and then you see these shock waves through the face and the chest and directly below the impact area and in the neck and stuff like that. And it's just the impact. It's just that shock wave. It really is literally a shock wave that's going through the entire body. Let's see, the old guy that's getting arrested, talking about shoot me over and over again, that stuff is crazy, that is wild, seems like maybe an obvious distraction to help the shooter get away, but what's that got to do with anything? Does it? It wasn't necessary. The shooter got away clean anyway. There doesn't seem to be a connection. He's an Ashkenazi Jew, if there was any question about that, which is not, it doesn't fit in with the rest of the narrative that the ruling of the world and all that stuff. I, again, don't have the wherewithal, not going to go there, just trying to address some of the more specific points. Obviously, there were at least one or more people on rooftops at the time. It seems like it's the one individual from the different angles and videos I've seen. Watched him jump off that roof, watched him change his clothing as he's running away, watched him do different, it's all very interesting all there, and it all seems to be him. The multiple active crime scenes, when that was mentioned, that's not a conspiracy. It's what happens when a guy runs off, changing his clothes, dropping a rifle, hiding a rifle in the woods, leaving imprints and indentations and things along the way as he's moving through. Let's see, law enforcement located Odomardo Mauser. Yeah, they found all that. Everybody knows all that stuff now. Larkin Rose made a good point. It was the only point of his that I caught. They aren't celebrating the death of who he actually was. They're celebrating the death of a fictionalized villain that they believed he was because they stupidly believed the BS from their fellow leftists. Yes, absolutely true. That it was done to recover up the Republican vote on the Epstein files. Here's my thoughts on that. They were going to do that anyway. So what did they do? They went ahead and sacrificed one of their huge right-wing assets assets to protect themselves from something they were already protected from and were already going to protect themselves from, that we all knew that they were already doing it, that they had been doing it. Do you realize that there's no list, right? There's just people, there's just victims. There are lists with names, manifests, things like that, but those aren't proofs of anything. There are violated people, and there's like maybe 100 of those at this point, or maybe a total of 1,000 that they believe, but there's only 100 of them that have come forward, like 10% or so of the total they believe that are out there, or average total or something like that they believe are out there, and only like a quarter of those, only 25% of those, like literally 25 people have sort of sued anybody or tried to bring anything up over this. So, what is this about? Is it about you having to know what happened on the list? Is it about keeping from other people from happening? Or are we here still, after all this time, maybe talking about the victims and maybe letting the victims have their voices? I don't know about that. One more, books written about his life and death, Charlie Kirk's life and death, written before, the day before. This one's going around. Look, people, when you put books up there, you can set that date to any date you want, because you could be adding a pre-existing book to this, something you wrote years ago, or something that was written by somebody else years and years and years ago, that being added to the bookshelf. So you can put literally any time in there. It doesn't prove that it was written before, that there was some other something else that's happening, something nefarious that's happening there. If we drop out here across the network, I apologize. We'll be back next week, and you can catch up with some of these other. I'm just going to finish out here just a couple of more minutes, because I have the ability to do so afterward. Women versus bacon. They're both extremely deadly to you if you don't, use them in moderation. I just had to get that comment in there. There's so much more about things that Charlie Kirk said, and over years and years of conversations that people tried to really ascribe to him as being racist, or meaning that he was racist, or misogynist, or any of these other ist words out there that are supposed to make people hate somebody by default because it's a bad word, whatever it is. Unfortunately, I could say this to a lot of people right now, not just people on the left or people that you might expect. A lot of people, because I'm tired of this. I've been on the right side of this all the time, every time. It doesn't matter who the target is. It doesn't matter who the assassin was. I'm on the right side of this argument all the time. The assassination is for cowards, and the only caveat that I was going to make at all, and I noticed that Ben Shapiro had made this too. I caught just a few minutes of Bill Maher just before, or just last night, Friday night, just after his show had aired, I guess, and I saw that it was dated the 12th, so I went ahead and watched it, and watched the first few minutes of it. Watched him talk to Charlie Kirk. And now with all the Charlies going on there, I'm forgetting his name. At any rate, the actor, and he has HIV, and he was in 2.5 Men and all that. That guy, that Charlie, I was talking to him. He talked to him for a little bit, and then he brought on the other guests, and he let Ben Shapiro talk for just a minute there. And Ben said the same thing that I had been saying from the beginning, that there's a clear difference between a political target and a political pundit that you make into a target, and that this is some kind of a social escalation. I feel personally attacked again, and I don't hold any particular core values that other people are claiming about Charlie Kirk. The Christian thing, the statism thing, all these things that he was into. Excuse me, that's just obnoxious. I've been trying to speed up and go through this because I didn't want this to drag on any longer, but I have the form and can do it afterwards. People can listen as long as they want to listen, and I can go on as long as I want to go on, which isn't too much longer. My point has been made throughout the entire show, and you can always go back and listen to the rest of it. And I've made the point repeatedly over and over again over the years about scumbags killing people from a distance, scumbags killing people who didn't directly hurt them or hurt somebody they love or damage their property, immediately threaten them of a reasonably acceptable, understood threat that places them in danger. These are the few reasons that you have to kill somebody, that you have to make some sort of claim on someone's life. Basically self-defense. Anything other than that is questionable. We would have to get down to the specifics, but certainly not just somebody who has political and social views that are different than yours. Even if you fall into a category of someone that it's not just different, but that they have a sort of vehement maybe hatred for you, as long as they're not physically attacking you, and as long as they're really, it's a little weird, but we have to have this. This is what I started the show with. We have to have this idea of being able to speak freely. And so you should be able to say that you're not happy with the transgender agenda, or the gay agenda, or the leftist agenda, or the socialist agenda, or any other agenda. It doesn't have to be one that is specifically opposite of the right or whatever. It's just whatever agenda that somebody's bringing to the table. It has to be set aside. It's better. I have to be better than that, and I will continue to be better than that. But I've listened to people for 2 days now make a bunch of claims about someone that even I know these claims aren't true, with just a very little bit of research. It takes almost no great effort to investigate the claims and to understand them within the context of the larger conversations that Charlie was having, things that were said at the time and over many years of his having these open conversations and inviting people in. And of all the things that people could claim about him, I don't for a minute believe that he was racist or that race played a particular place in the arguments that he made for family, or the right of self-defense. There are other things. Obviously, he's a statist. He believes in border controls and controlling people's movements, and he was for the things that Donald Trump is doing now and sending troops into cities and occupying cities with a national police force. These are not good things, but these are just ideas. These are political ideas. These are not things enacted by him. And what I started to say about the Ben Shapiro thing, what he said, again, makes this point, is that there is a separation between talking about these things and actively being somebody who participates in making the things that people are talking about in the political spectrum into a reality by being a politician who violates people and helps to pass things that violate people and make into laws things that violate people. And so I've been listening to these arguments, and they try and make these points, but I can tell you from having very little crossing over of seeing Charlie Kirk over the years. I only recently, this is how recent this is, and then I'm going to get out of here and I'll let you go. And this is how recent this is. It was only about 5 months ago that I wanted to even know who Charlie Kirk was, and get this. So it was because he was on an episode of Club Random, the show that's hosted by Bill Maher. And so it was Charlie Kirk. I've heard this guy's name. I've seen him around. I didn't know the Turning Point. I know that's in and around there somewhere. I didn't know that much information about him, even as much as I know about him right now, obviously, 5 months ago. And he was on Club Random, and I started to watch it, and I bailed out about 15 minutes after. It's like an hour and a half conversation or longer, hour and 45 minutes or something like that. And I bailed out after about 15 minutes of the conversation, and it wasn't because of Charlie. It was because of Bill Maher. And you've heard me talk about this before, that Bill Maher talks over his guests. He tries to be funny. He's not that funny. He's not that intelligent. And he tries to cover up the lack of intelligence and the lack of individual funny that he has, especially when he's just relaxed and high and not paying attention to the conversation. He's talking over his guests. He does it all the time. It's annoying. As a host, as somebody, I know that's a no-no, that you don't do that. That's not how you have a conversation with somebody. And so it annoys the crap out of me. And I got tired of him talking over Charlie. I wanted to hear what Charlie had to say. I wanted him to explain who he was and what it is, the things that we were saying. And so I bailed out of it. And then, of course, with it all popping up and everything, videos and this, that, and the other thing across the YouTube and the Instagram and everywhere, TikTok and all that, this video came back up of his appearance on Club Random, and it showed the little red bar on there at the bottom and showed that I only listened to about 15 minutes of it or so, and I distinctly remember going, that's right. I started to watch this show with Charlie Kirk, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about him, see if I'd seen the clips and the again, the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Reels and all these things, and I'd seen him having these conversations, and I'd seen him making legitimate points, and I'd seen him using historical data and information to back up his points, the things that a good argumenter does, and he's bringing the other people in to have the conversation with him, to have the argument with him, and the argument is to have the argument means to have the back and forth with the point of reaching some resolution or understanding. It's not about arguing. That's a different thing. Having an argument is different than arguing. Those are, I can't explain it. I'm out of time. I'm well out of time. This one's running super extra, and I appreciate you hanging out. Let me just make sure there wasn't just a couple more. So, okay. So that I wanted to make the point that, it's okay to accept all these people, all these personal things, all these people and their personal things, what they call themselves, what they favor for themselves, what they love for themselves, the things that they try to say that they can't properly articulate, but and still at the same time have a scientific or faith-based belief or something else that can play a bigger role in another person's understanding and the opinion of those things. And the fact that it was his thing to have the open conversation, and yet all of these people are refusing to recognize this. Left, right, it doesn't matter. These many of these people that I'm talking about personally are supposedly above the left and right thing, that they don't play that game, but they still weren't letting people have the conversation. There's still red herring argument after red herring argument about, oh, well, you didn't support this, or you didn't say something about this particular thing. Well, then how can you're a hypocrite for saying something about it now? Well, maybe I didn't know about that other thing, or maybe you didn't realize that I have addressed that situation. Maybe not that specific case at that time, but I've addressed this situation repeatedly about the assassination and the killing of people, and harming people that haven't done you any harm. If we haven't become seriously clear about that one in this time, there's no hope for you. If you've been listening to me and haven't figured that out, it'd be different if you're just tuning in. You have a grace period where you figure out who I am. Anybody else, it's already past that point. The fact that that these people are not letting them, they're not even giving him that he's bringing people in the conversation, and that's a very serious, important fact in what it was that he was doing and when inviting other people into the conversation. It just tells me that this person, these people that are making these these claims. They've sucked down some ideology or the perceived, imagined, not perceived would be becoming aware of, imagined that he had some ideology that he actually did not hold, or this ideology actually has a hold on these people already. And that was my point about the shooter, that it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter. This murderer, it doesn't matter what his ideology is. It doesn't matter if his parents were Republicans. It doesn't matter if he dressed up as Trump. I think on Halloween, I think he was supposed to dress up as scary things he wanted to scare people with. That would be maybe what my first take out of that. Out of context, there is nothing to say about it. People, on the one side, the people on the left are saying there's no way that he didn't grow up a Republican, that he couldn't be a Republican, that he's just not just another crazy-ass Nazi that had access to guns, and he just wasn't as crazy as the rest of the Nazis, or something like that. I don't know what it is. I don't even get it in that argument. The argument that children grow up to be their parents and to accept everything that their parents do. It's complete hogwash. It's a nonsense argument that's proven by the last 3 generations of people, including myself, most notably my generation, Generation X, waking up, getting up, and telling the boomers, all of you from the 50s, from the 60s, you hippies, all of you dippies, you yuppies, you scumbags, everybody in between that had some other version of their world and making the rest of us see us, to go yourselves. That's right. That was my generation that put that in place. There's so much more that we could talk about. There really is, and I just really want you to take away from this that this wasn't the answer, that this didn't change anything, that this probably made things worse. It didn't make anything better, and it wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't the human thing to do. It wasn't having the conversation. And he proved, and this murderer, this scumbag, all he did was prove Charlie Kirk right. If his point was to prove him wrong, to prove that Charlie Kirk was wrong in anything, that he was a racist, that it was any of these things that people have made up, he didn't do it. He failed. He failed miserably. He actually proved him right. He proved him right because let's talk about the gun thing. Just this is it, and then I'm out. The gun thing is real simple. Okay, he's talking about guns and on our streets and talking about more guns and everybody should have guns and everybody should be armed and responsible people and this and the other thing. The things that I talk about all the time in terms of people being armed and having the right of self-defense. This is a great big deal for me and for many people who understand how important it is, and somebody who's sharing that view is empowering people. He's not taking away the power from people. He's not pretending that the argument is that people who are innocent are being killed because there is a proliferation of guns. People are being killed because there is a proliferation of bad people, of people who devalue life, and that it's not the guns, that these things aren't about race, that they aren't about color, that they're about attitude, that they're about accepting a particular reverence and respect for life and for other people, even if they don't agree with you 100%. I'm way past time. I'll see you next week on Toward Anarchy.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.